We're going to continue our board meeting deconstruction here. So we've just had this double murder on the light rail, the crazy white supremacist, I guess. We saw him on the 82nd protest. Remember the big hubbub of TriMet providing buses for the supremacists? And this guy who killed these people was actually a main figure in that 82nd news coverage. Now it turns out he was on the train and he was harassing some Muslims, and 3 people tried to get involved and he ended up killing 2 of them. So he's some crazy guy he is. What's interesting about it is, after all the hubbub about the extra police and the money they want to sink in the TriMet police bunker, and the board of directors bragging about how the system has been so safe since they've added all these police. There's been 2 stabbings, 2 separate stabbings in a week. And the system isn't safe. It's, I know, I worked there. Okay, I remember. I never felt safe driving the bus. And I listened to the scanner, and it's so crazy out there, you don't have any idea. And just for the people that, every now and then I'll get into a conversation with somebody who expects the bus driver to intervene in behavior problems on the bus. Why didn't the driver do something about this? Why didn't the driver do something about that? Well, the reason why I never did and others don't is because some of these people are crazy, like this guy on the Max. Some of these people are absolutely out of their fucking minds and are capable of killing you. And we've seen it played out right here on the TriMet light rail with this insane guy and his killing these 2 people that were trying to help the Muslim women. So, I mean, it's just a tragic, incredible tragedy for everybody. But hopefully TriMet will re-emphasize their security personnel from worrying about the $2.50 to actually stationing their personnel and the police in the stations and get them on the system. I never understood why these transit police and they don't really ride the system. They station themselves around, but they're not on the Max platforms checking fares before people get on the trains. They don't ride the trains to check people that get on the trains. I mean, what they do is they like to have these entrapment functions. Basically a fare sting is an entrapment because they've created this wide open system. Okay, it's like an invitation to come on in. You don't have to pay. But rather than having a conductor, that's another option that they should have as a conductor, somebody who's riding on the train checking tickets and monitoring behavior. But rather than doing any of that, they rather have these elaborate fare stings where everybody gets off and they get funneled them through a chute and they check to see whether they have $2.50. I mean, I don't know if TriMet will ever change that because, they're not accountable. They have all nice, pretty words for everything. But what they need to do is change their emphasis from collecting $2.50 to actually making the system somewhat safer than what it is. I'm not sure if you can stop random acts of violence totally, but you can sure make a dent in it if your presence is felt all the time on the system, which it's not now. Anyway, let's get to this part 2 of this board meeting. Or this is part 3 now.
Questions from the board? Gina, thank you very much.
So I think we'd like to continue with Doug on the update on the rail safety audit. So Doug, if you could jump into that, please.
Sure, happy to. Thank you. There we go. I can grab the steering wheel here just for a sec. So just a quick update for you as on the safety audit, rail compliance audit, where we are to date. So overall, we're up about 10% on the net performance of what we've outlined was our plan going in. There are some adjustments we're making. There's a couple in the 0 to 6 month period. You'll see in 7 to 12 we're down slightly. In a couple cases it's timing. There's a couple elements in the report that we think we're going to need more time because they have labor implications and probably overly aggressive on what we think they might be. So one was around looking at benchmarking around discipline and such around for rail operators as an example. So that's going to take some time. It'll have to work through a normal process to put the appropriate implementation in place. However, folks haven't been idle at all. If you look at some of on the chart you have in front of you, you look at the 1 to 2 years and 2+ years, people have been very aggressively working on some of those results as well. So we're trying to hit this on a number of fronts. And so you can see overall the net scorecard is we really are making progress. And to support that, actually the next chart you have in front of you is actually, so how are we doing on the total cumulative rail violations? So like in most living, breathing organizations like ourselves, we have many employees and contractors and in capital and in electronic systems. You can see the trend overall is down, so from when we started this from around over 320 incidents per million miles, we're down to about 173. So it will go up and down over time, but the goal is this is probably never going to end. We have to stay focused on this. It has to absolutely become cultural and deep, but the overall trend is very favorable. Behind the scenes, I would refer to you to the signal rule violations. So these are really critical ones. So we started back in October around 144, and if you can kind of see the general trending downwards, progress is being made. Overall, to April of the last reporting period is at just under 80. So again, lots of work to do, but this is one of the important ones along with the next slide, which is about speed. So speed signals are really crucial. General trend is down. This one has more variability. We do also know that we also have some signals, so sometimes that trip with the technology. So the engineering team is doing a great job trying to help us calibrate the sensitivity of some of those, so we get false trips sometimes, so we're factoring those out. And I think we're seeing some progress here again from 56 when we started down to about 29. So the arrow's moving in the right way. There'll be some variability up and down, but I think we want to take the long-term view of this. And it does not mean in any of these charts that we're unsafe, as the auditor referred to us. It's just we want to make sure we're compliant as well, that goes with being safe. That would conclude my report, unless there's any comments.
Well, you know, Kelsey's been on this tear about the cultural deficiencies of the TriMet light rail staff. Apparently, he thinks it's been the most undisciplined operation in the world and needs a cultural shift, blah, blah, and I guess he says it's getting better, but it will never get better. We'll always have to work on it. We need a whole culture shift. I mean, that would be pretty demoralizing for the people that are working there to have to listen to that. And I don't know. What do I know about it? Nothing, really. I guess he knows more than me. But from my observations, it just seems he's really over the top here.
Nice progress. Comments or questions?
I have a question. So tell us what you think contributes to the reduced number of rule violations.
I think it's a combination of things. I think we're focusing on training. We are focusing on moving our standard up in terms of intervening sooner. Some of our operators are getting more time in the seat, if you will, and it does take time to work through some of these things. I think we're spending a lot more time as an organization focusing on quick follow-up. And also, if someone we do not believe can make the test because we've upped that standard, we will send them back to be in a bus after the probationary period. So we are running this a lot.
Don't you love the way that the bus is a punishment? We'll send them back to it's viewed as a punishment. I don't know why anybody would want to work at light rail with this guy in charge, really.
Tighter than I think historically we have. And we're dealing with the sensitivity issues on the technology piece, as I referred to earlier, particularly on the orange line. I think we're seeing that where we've seen a lot of trips that were going on there, and that's not uncommon as a new line. So as we get the bugs out, if you will, make those adjustments, I think that's contributing to this as well.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Not. We'll continue. I'd like to ask Harry to come up with the report on operator assaults that you've asked for on a monthly basis. But I also, as Harry comes up, I just want to particularly thank Doug for the great work, both on the rule violations and on the on-time performance, but to see Max up above 90% on time over the last 30 days is really quite rewarding for, I know for him, but certainly for everyone else, and I know the customers see that as well, so greatly appreciate that. Harry?
Good morning. My report will be brief this morning. We actually have two major efforts underway currently. As you know, we've installed barriers and we are receiving feedback from the operators. This week, we have the contractor making modifications to those barriers so that we will then have to survey the operators to see whether or not it made the improvements that we hope it would have resulted in. Secondly, we did meet last week as a group with the operators, and we discussed what support services do they need if they are involved in an assault situation. And through that discussion, we're going to make several improvements in process and provide them more resources should that be the situation. That's still work that's underway. They're not all resolved, but the end goal is to do that. And when that happens, I will certainly update you with what specific actions we're actually taking to improve that situation.
It's interesting that he said that because there hasn't been any discussion of marking people off after an assault. You could have easily taken care of that right now. We'll mark them off automatically without fear of time loss. But he didn't. He's talking about resources. Who knows what the hell that's supposed to mean? You know, they hem and haw around the solutions. The solutions are obvious to anybody that actually pays attention. But bureaucrats got to be bureaucrats, and they have to overcomplicate everything.
Questions?
Any questions?
Seeing none. Thank you, Billy.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
That was supposed to be a report. Why did they even bother bringing him up there? He had nothing to report. A waste of time.
So, if you'd like, I was hoping actually to just continue with a quick update on the state transportation package and other issues underway with the Oregon legislature this year. As you know, there is a lot of energy being focused on the state transportation package. So there has been a joint committee on transportation preservation and modernization. And they've been having hearings, working on proposals for actually provide more funding for transportation, including for transit. The bill is being drafted and expected to be available next week. So we understand that public hearings on that are scheduled for May 31st and June 5th. We've had a number of visits with those legislatures, both...
That's kind of interesting that public hearings are scheduled for tomorrow because this is May 30th, right, today. And June 5th, I haven't heard anything about a public hearing anywhere. I mean, I follow this material daily, okay, especially on Twitter. I'm really a Twitter guy because you can get all the fastest updates on Twitter without having to read through a bunch of garbage like Facebook. But I haven't seen anything about public hearings. This is the first I've heard about it. Jeez.
With board members as well as community members. On Monday was actually the task force, Mr. Board President, you referred to really on the low-income fare. Actually, many members for that task force were down advocating for the transportation funding package and inclusion of funding for transit that would enable that low-income fare program to be initiated. So we're quite optimistic about where all of that is, but obviously there's still a lot of work to be done. Let me run through a few other bills of interest for TriMet. House Bill 3202 is the Southwest Corridor Land Use Bill, and this really creates the same sort of process that we've had for every other light rail line from the west side through the south-north project that included the yellow line and the orange line and the green line. Allows that same sort of expedited land use appeals process that's necessary for a federal funding process to be successful and timely. That bill has passed out of committee last week and is now in Ways and Means awaiting action. And it does seem to be strong support for the bill, so we expect it to be approved ultimately. There was some reference earlier to what is actually now known as House Bill 2777. That would allow us to move handling fare violations in-house. It's actually passed out of the House Judiciary Committee on March 21st, passed on the House floor by a vote of 54 in favor to 5 against on March 29th, and is now in Senate Judiciary. We had a successful hearing on April 25th, and there's a work session scheduled for May 30th, and strong support for the bill, and we expect it to be approved ultimately as well. House Bill 2717 increases the penalty for assaulting a transit employee, related to Harry's just recent report. It passed out of the House Judiciary Committee on April 6th, and it's now in Ways and Means awaiting action. A couple other bills of interest. Senate Bill 357 lowers the penalty for interfering with public transit from a misdemeanor A to C, and that passed out of Senate Judiciary on April 18th. SB 357 passed the Senate floor and most likely move out of House Judiciary this week. I'd also just note that really is in line with the work that we've done with the district attorneys in all 3 counties that was referenced in your earlier remarks as well, related to interfering with public transit. Senate Bill 121, a bill to direct TriMet to study light rail to Forest Grove, passed out of the Senate Business.
Here we go. We have the light rail cabal fully in control of the processes in the state, and TriMet, now they want to go to Forest Grove. Shit, why don't you just go to the coast? Well, just go to Salem, go to the coast. Light rail to Bend, Oregon would be nice. I mean, why didn't you just do light rail all throughout all of Oregon at this point? I mean, why pussyfoot around? Do a high speed light rail like they're doing in California.
And Transportation on April 17th, and has moved to Ways and Means awaiting action. So we'll keep you updated on all of this as we continue. And finally, at your last meeting briefing, we went through the business plan. We put that out for public comment. We offered you the opportunity to comment on it. Comments were received, and we have now our final version, if you will, to present to you. And so I wanted to bring up both Alan Nato and Doug Kelsey, who have barely been the champions behind the hard work associated with it, for a very short presentation on this.
So we'll just jump into this and probably take about 3 to 4 minutes.
Thanks, Doug. Mr. President, members of the board, we updated you last month and previously on the business plan, so this will be quick. As you know, we've talked about this strategy map, this set of 12 goals that clearly articulate how we're trying to move towards our vision, mission, and values to do our part to make this the best place to live in the country. The point of the
Oh, this should be pretty good. This is their vision mission. I like that. We're going to make this the best place to live in the country. Yeah, as long as you have plenty of money. You know, Portland is so gentrified, you can't live there anymore unless you're upper middle class or higher upper class. Portland is over in terms of what it used to be. So you can't make it the best place to live in the country because it's not affordable. So it's all, you know, more bullshit from the TriMet people.
business plan is to give us more guidance and to align our efforts at all levels in the agency. It provides those 12 goals that cover the range of strategic needs for TriMet. It provides 39 specific objectives to help clarify those goals and 64 key strategic actions to pursue and to make progress over the 5 years of the lifetime of this plan, which will be a rolling update every year of a 5-year plan. You've seen examples. I'd just point out, for example, Objective 14, which clarifies our focus on reliable performance, a measure of on-time performance, and specifically identifies targets for each of our modes, and identifies some key strategic actions, including some of what Doug was talking about earlier, to continue to improve and make those targets. Neil mentioned the comments on the draft, not wide-ranging, but some specific ones that we definitely needed to make updates to. We added some definitions. We added to Director Bauman's question some information about employees with disabilities that are covered in a separate plan that's kind of under the umbrella of this. We added a little bit more focus on Lyft paratransit. which will be a strategy and a effort going forward. And then some minor efforts, including making sure that the web links were corrected in there. So all incorporated for that final version that you have in front of you for FY 18 through 22. Our next steps are to take this overall agency vision and turn it into the vehicle for creating alignment at all levels within TriMet. So we'll be rolling it out with divisions and departments. There are many TriMet employees who were involved in this, but of course not all of them were able to. And so now the detail work begins of identifying how each of our actions help support the overall agency need to make these improvements. Our timeline is the final report right now, and then during this coming fiscal year to do that first year of implementation, make sure that people are aligning along these efforts. Much of what we're doing is already aligned, but to do it more consciously and to make sure that we are focusing where we need to be to really make progress. We're expecting to bring twice yearly updates on measures back to this board so that you can track how we're doing. And starting in the fall, we'll, of course, start thinking about the update for FY19 as we continue to work on implementing it for this year.
The only thing I would perhaps add is just to not, for management, is we are not going to underestimate the significance of the communication challenge and the alignment challenge. Again, a tremendous amount of initiatives are already embedded in before this business plan. They're being taken advantage of. We're just not starting from zero. So we're leveraging a bunch of existing work, but there is a alignment. We want to make sure, we've got to make sure that this thing, it sticks from the conversation to the individuals on the shop floor, to our great bus operators, train operators, through an IT and planning and engineering. So there's a pervasiveness that says, look, here's the alignment of the areas of focus, which will also help us determine where we want to spend less time. So it will help us, I think, get that message out, create the cause for a business plan. Why a business plan? Some people haven't worked with business plans before. They need to be part of this. And so we just don't want to underestimate the significance of the communication piece that's going to, that we will be undertaking here over the next number of months.
You know, that's all nice pie in the sky talk. We're going to get everybody aligned on the same page. But what does this mean to a bus operator? A bus operator cares about being on time, being safe, and getting enough sleep, having a lifestyle that's decent. You know, they're not going to address any of the nuts and bolts issues in this, I'm sure. You know, like the horrible shift work, every 3 months your life is destabilized, the horrible schedules, the horrible equipment, the overcrowded buses and trains. You know, they're not going to address any of the nuts and bolts. This is all bureaucratic, what would be the word, verbiage. You know, I can't wait to see what they come up with. But, you know, this kind of stuff turns me off because I know what it really is. It's bureaucrats being bureaucrats again. You know, they're not going to deal. The people that are TriMet are the mechanics, the bus operators, the rail operators. That's not Kelsey and Lato and McFarland. They're the rulers of the agency. They're the aristocracy. They're the elites. Okay, they control the money. All right, and that's why they get the big money. They control everything below them, but they are an aristocracy. Okay, they're more or less a monarchy. They're not trying. Any one of these people you see before you, if they didn't show up tomorrow, the public wouldn't care less. If your bus operator doesn't show up, you're not getting home. All right, so these people are making these grandiose plans. I'll be tracking them all, believe me. But I don't see any talk about nuts and bolts issues that drivers, for example, care about.
With that, happy to answer any questions you may have or comments.
I think we're good. Thank you very much. That's a very quick, thorough report. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes my report, unless there are any questions the board has on miscellaneous items.
No, I just want to make one comment. I think Kim Howell may still be in the room talking about some of the large congestion relief projects that are being talked about in the legislature. And I just want anybody watching this to understand the context that I had the opportunity to sit on the governor's Transportation Vision Task Force that went around the state and talked about transportation priorities. The Joint Transportation Committee you made reference to at the legislature did the same thing. And what they heard the number one priority for folks, around the state were getting through the city of Portland and the Portland metro region with their goods and services. And that congestion in this area was a huge economic risk and problem for them, and the state agrees. And so the legislature is looking at what needs to be done. So I want to stress for Jim that those projects they're talking about are of statewide significance. Our job in terms of congestion management is clearly to help get folks out of their cars and use other modes to further aid. But I believe that, again, it's very clear that those major routes, I-5, I-84, I-205, and 217, are an impediment to businesses around the entire state. And so that's what's driving that dialogue. And I just wanted to get that onto the record this morning. All right, we ready to move on then to the consent agenda? All right, on the consent agenda, for anybody watching, these are items that are considered routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. However, any board member can remove an item from the consent portion of the agenda for discussion or questions by requesting such action prior to the consideration of this portion of the agenda. I will point out that we have 6 items on our agenda this morning: approval of our minutes from the April 26th meeting, a resolution authorizing transfer of appropriated funds within the FY 217 general fund budget, just truing up our budget to reflect actual expenses. There's a resolution regarding multicultural outreach engagement services, flexible service contracts with a number of firms, mostly minority owned and related to community outreach in particular areas. A resolution authorizing 2 contracts with Broadway Cab for lift program and supplemental transportation services. A resolution authorizing a contract with Ross Builders for the Merlot bus maintenance and administration operator buildings and exterior painting project. And then finally, a resolution authorizing a contract with Russell Construction for the Merlot bus garage window replacement project. So those are the items. Is there any
For the 20 or I guess there's about 20, somewhere between 20 and 30 people that actually care about this, that actually take the time to watch it. If you want to review any of those items, you'll have to go to my blog. I have a post about what I call the Trimet cash machine pork barrel contracts, and I've listed all of the contracts with my always witty comments. And I'm not going to go in and do them. They're going to approve them in a blanket motion.
Any item on the consent agenda a member of the board would like to have removed for consideration or has questions? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Your motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? None. The motion is approved unanimously.
And the motion's approved unanimously, of course. Lane Jensen used to do a podcast where he had the beginning of his podcast. He had a takeoff on the motion is approved unanimously. It was fun. Lane's got the greatest sense of humor. Did you hear that was Stovall talking? You know, we haven't heard from him today. That's very unusual. He's not talking much today. That's strange. He's usually one of the biggest blabbermouth on the board, but today he's just quiet. What's up with that, Travis? Come on, get talking. I like to pick on you.